and stream. Okay. Hello. We are streaming from the TransStar building in Houston, Texas. And today we are putting on, we're going to stream this for the two gentlemen. I'm talking quietly because it's a loud room. Talking into the mic. Yeah, there's Frank. Everybody say hi to Frank.
Howdy, y'all. How's it going?
Let's see. Make sure I've got the right thing. I want to make sure I'm... So this is going to be... Yeah, there we go. This is going to be streaming to Facebook because... start watch party. Start... No, not Parks in the Air. I don't need to... Okay. So, yes, this is going to be streaming to Facebook because the building we're in right now has the YouTube live port blocked. Getting an error in Wirecast, and it's Googled it, and they say your firewall's blocked. So it's not the firewall on my side, it's the firewall in the building because Facebook streaming works good. But I'm recording it to disk also, so we're going to post it on the YouTube channel tonight. So if you go to hamradio2.com/live stream, it should redirect you to my Facebook page, my hamradio2.0 Facebook page, and that's where we are right now. So that is that. My name's Jason. I'm KC5HWB, and happy that we're going to be talking to Mr. John Robert Stratton, N5AUS today, and also Madison Jones, W5MJ. John Stratton's been the director of the West Gulf Division for a couple of years now. Well, maybe he was vice director, and then the Dr. Woolweaver stepped down a while back, and that's really loud when you do that, Frank. John was stepped up to be director, and now this is the first election with him as director. I'm pretty sure it's the first election with him as director. And then Madison, Mr. Jones, W5MJ, is running against him. So I think that one question I had is when is the actual, because somebody asked on the live stream, or somebody asked on the email blast I sent out about what if I don't make it to the event today, how can I vote? The voting's not going on today. This is a presentation. This is a get to know you. Okay, the voting I think is not until like February, if I remember correctly. I need to find that out. I need to confirm that. But as with the North Texas section election that went on earlier this year, I was mailed a form to say, here's the two candidates running, check here, check there. And I was mailed a form to my QRZ or my FCC ULS verified address because I live in the North Texas section. So if you live in the West Gulf Division, which is basically Texas and Oklahoma, if you live in Texas and Oklahoma and you're an ARRL member, you should get mailed a form, and you probably will get an email too, I don't know, but you'll be able to go online. When they announce it, you'll be able to go online and say, this is who I vote for. So elections are not taking place today. This video will be online for a while, so you'll be able to go back and view it, review it, share it, post it out to your local clubs. Those who weren't able to watch it today during the live stream, they can watch it on YouTube later because it will be posted tonight on the YouTube channel as a replay, unedited. So that is that, and we're waiting to get started here. This is the room so far. Pardon Frank's messed up hair in that shot. Yeah. But yeah. So yeah, there is a chat. It looks like I've never used Facebook live chat through Wirecast before. So there is there's a chat that's next to it, and are you sending that to me?
No, that's to...
Okay. I keep getting notifications. I'm getting notifications through Discord about that. So, are you in the Facebook chat? Okay, go in the Facebook chat and see if you can type me. Do you see where I typed hello in there? Type something in there. I'm at the watch party. I wonder if that's different. Oh, Jason's watch party. Maybe that's why. Nope. Hold on a second. as I said, never really done a live stream through Wirecast on Facebook. Boom. Let's just go here. No. Boost unavailable. Live. Something. Okay. Okay, can you see that on the Facebook page? Yeah, there we go. Hey. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Okay. That's fine. I'm just doing an intro on the letting everybody know what's going on, but yeah, that's good. No problem. Sure. Okay. Oh, one thing I did want to ask, a question that was posed to me outside of the chat was, or the email list I sent. When is the election? Because somebody thought the election was today, and they're like, well, I can't be there. I know it's not today, but yeah, when is the
election's
the February?
we will tell no.
Okay.
He'll mention that right off.
Okay, he'll mention that right off the bat. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We'll do that.
I will mention that.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. Douglas Davis. Hello, is it me you're looking for? Hello. I'm not going to sing.
There was low audio report.
Low. Okay, we can fix that. Who said that?
Mark, it's on the YouTube channel.
Oh, you're in the YouTube chat. Okay.
I'm in all of them.
Okay. Okay, that should do it a little bit there. Hello. I don't want to be too loud. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Y'all tell me in the chat. Tell me in the Facebook streaming chat. Doug and John, y'all tell me in the Facebook chat, how does my audio sound? Is it too loud? Is it not loud enough? I can adjust accordingly right here. And when the speaker starts, I'm going to ask you to do that again. Here we go. There's probably about a minute delay between the stream and the stream. How many people are over there? Oh, there you go. The Facebook chat. Oh, there's 20 waiting, yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, we already got it.
We got that. Yeah, we got it. No problem. Yes, they're starting. They're waiting 5 minutes. They're going to start in about 4 or 5 minutes. There are still people walking in. It's 2:01 Central Standard Time right now. Answering question from Dale Durham, and yeah. So yeah, they're starting just a little bit late to let everyone file in. Kathy, I see you say lots of buffering. We're watching. I'm watching the live stream here. Shows 20 people watching, and I'm not getting any buffering at all. So we'll do what we can. We are at the mercy of the EOC Wi-Fi.
Running about 5 minutes late, so just in probably about 4 minutes or so, we'll get started.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. So if this, for what I mean, as far as I can tell, it's working correctly on the Facebook stream right now. It looks pretty good to me. Because I've got Wirecast here and I've got Facebook here, and I'm watching the Facebook stream on my Facebook page, so it should be okay. But if not, still go ahead and type your questions in, and this, like I said, this stream will be posted on my YouTube page tonight, raw and unedited. Except I may cut out a little bit of the beginning where I was blabbing, but other than that, it's probably pretty much the whatever it's supposed to be. Larry Shawd says no buffering here. Good. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that. So welcome to Mark. Mark says still not loud enough. I had to turn audio almost all the way up on the Mac. Well, you're using a Mac, dude. I mean, what can I tell you? So, yeah, perfect audio, perfect video, no buffering. Thank you for all you're doing. Eric says. Rick says looks and sounds great. Kathy says, okay, yeah, Kathy, I'm going to guess that's at your end. Sorry. But it will be on YouTube tonight, as I said. So hopefully that audio is a little bit better, because I did turn it up. I'm awfully loud in my own ears. I can turn my own ears down. There we go. Ha. All right. couple of reports that the audio's good. So yeah, y'all keep us posted in the chat. If you need me to turn something up or down, just tell me. I can adjust it right here. It's not a problem. Audio's a little light on the Facebook vid. It seems awfully loud to me, but okay. How is that? There.
It sounded fine to me a minute ago.
Did you do you have headset? You do. Okay, good. Good. All right. Some people may just have systems that require the other. 2 minutes? Okay. 2 minutes. We're going to get started here, guys. Rick, this is a Logitech webcam, a C922. That's what I use. If you go to kit.com/KC5HWB, my call sign, I have a lot of stuff listed there camera-wise that I use. Matt Thomas says, Facebook audio good now. Thanks. Okay, good. Thank you. We will try to keep it that way. Really kind of bummed that the YouTube stream wouldn't work.
I know. Me too.
I mean, why does Facebook work and YouTube doesn't?
Different ports.
Different ports. Yeah, I mean, that's it. But I just wondered why they have Facebook or YouTube blocked and not Facebook. That's kind of strange. Maybe Facebook doesn't use a proprietary port. I don't know. Maybe it uses 8080 or something common. I have no idea. But be that as it may. Just give me a heads up, Mike, before you go. Just whenever. John, I'm just giving you a hard time about the Mac, dude. Yeah, Frank should have a mic, but... Okay, here we go. Here we go, guys.
I know everybody has things to do this weekend. That's why I'm up here. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Mike Hardwick, N5VCX, president of the Brazos Valley Amateur Radio Club. I want to thank everyone for coming out today to this election forum. This forum was an idea that came from several of the area hams as well as both candidates. It's been endorsed by many of the Houston amateur radio clubs such as BVARC, Echo, CARS, NARS, TDXS, Clark, and Park, and any other initials that I can come up with. We have some housekeeping rules we got to take care of real first here. Please silence your cell phones. I just silenced mine. We don't need anything interrupting anybody or changing an election with somebody with a ringtone from Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Restrooms are off the main hall over here behind us. If needed, we have a muster point for evacuation out in the front of the building. To get to those muster points, we have 2 exits here, an exit in the back. We have a lighted walkway. Keep your trays and tables, never mind. We also have an AED out in the hallway in case somebody needs one. Anyhow, I know everybody has busy lives and it's difficult to get away with events like this. However, if you're interested in the future of amateur radio, this forum is a way for you to improve your knowledge of the people that may, in the future, make decisions that will affect our hobby for many years to come. By not researching the candidates and understanding their views, your uneducated vote could possibly do more harm than good on election day. That is the purpose of this forum, to present information and help educate voters. The ARRL election for West Gulf Division Director, ballots are being mailed out. They should come out on the 30th or the 1st of October, and you'll have to have them in by the 15th of November. So that's the election time period. I want to thank Madison Jones, W5MJ, and John Stratton, N5AUS, for accepting the invitation for this forum. Let's give them a round of applause for Madison and John. Both candidates feel that educating voters is important and a forum is needed. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming today. The forum format is a simple one. We're going to allow both candidates to present their views and ideas for the position that they're running for. The forum will be overseen by yours truly, the moderator. The presentation order will be determined through a coin toss, since neither candidate bought me a round trip to Australia. Once the coin toss is done, that person will give his presentation. They will have up to 15 minutes to present their views and ideas. They will get a 3-minute warning if they get close to the 15-minute mark. After the second person finishes, will be a Q&A session. We'll do some online Q&A questions that have already come in. I'll present those. Each audience member for the Q&A session will be chosen on hands being raised, the highest, the fastest, whatever. And then it will be picked by myself or one of my assistants, which I haven't picked yet, but I'm looking for them now. Audience members should ask only a single question. It needs to be short and to the point. All questions need to be directed to candidates and not to members in the audience. Depending on audience size and number of questions, the candidates will have between 3 and 5 minutes for their answers. Either way, there will be a 1-minute warning for the candidates. This forum is not meant to be a debate, since the candidates should only answer the questions from the audience. They should not respond to their own opponent's questions during the Q&A. However, it will be inevitable that comments will be injected into each other's answers. Hopefully we can kind of control that. So I'm going to ask both candidates to come up here, and we're going to do a coin toss. Yes, it's a two-headed coin. No, not really. However, it is a 1922 silver dollar. So.
We call it right, do we get to keep it?
No.
This was supposed to be fair.
1922?
Yeah.
Who was born in 1922? Nobody?
Don't admit that.
I want to flip it, y'all will call it in the air, and hopefully I can see it when it hits the ground.
Go. Heads? Did you want to call?
I know, I got tails. You got the heads.
You got heads?
What
It
is
is heads.
Oh. Okay, you got it.
John?
I got the dollar though, right?
Can we flip twice for the dollar?
No. Anyhow, John will be first, Madison will be second, and that's how the questions will also be answered from the audience. So, John, the floor is yours. Oh, the microphones are yours. Whatever, one or the other.
Madison and I are both disappointed. Get water, no whiskey. Yeah, it's always a promise of later. I want to thank everybody for coming. It's important to amateur radio that the league have people who are interested enough to pay attention to the elections. Because as members of the ARRL, you and 12,000 other people are going to decide the future, or at least a part of the future of amateur radio, because you're going to vote for one of us as director for the West Gulf. For those of you who don't know me, let me give you a little background about myself. I'm a native Texan, born in San Marcos, lived in Austin, raised there all my life. I'm an aerospace engineer, and for a while I worked with General Dynamics on the F-111. I'm an attorney for real life, specializing in commercial litigation and personal injury litigation. I'm a life member of the league and a member of the silver member of the Diamond Club. My interest in amateur radio started in East Texas listening to shortwave broadcasts on my uncle's helicopters. And after that, it lapsed until scouting, which is a point about how important scouting is to amateur radio. One of my scoutmasters became my Elmer. He was a dedicated ham, and he did his best to get me to get my license. But I discovered something else, girls. And then engineering school, then law school, then life came along. So I came back to amateur radio late in life. I think like a lot of our members did. How many of y'all came back late in life? About half the room. Those who come back late in life have proven to be the most dedicated to the league and amateur radio. I got my license, tech license first in 2006. After I got the license, I thought it important that I give back to amateur radio. A year later, headquarters sent out a request for people to volunteer at the Texas legislature to help stop, I think, 25 plus cell phone bills that, had they passed, would have eliminated mobile amateur radio in Texas. From volunteering, didn't they tell you, never volunteer? After volunteering, instead of being a member of the team, Coy Day put me in charge of the team. With that team, we were successful in 2009 of stopping every one of those cell phone bills. After that session, we learned that we were going to have help if we were going to succeed again. So in 2008, I, along with but David Woolweaver, the director, vice director at the time, and Glenn Reed, K5FX, formed the first, to our knowledge, amateur radio political action committee, Texas HAMPAC. It was formed to raise money to help us fund any legislative efforts. And there are people in this audience that are contributors to Texas HAMPAC. We thank you for that contribution, because it's permitted us to stop and pass legislation. In 2009, we made a decision to go from defense to offense. No other division had actively promoted amateur radio-friendly legislation. So we started. We introduced tower bills, bills about, well, they were called flagpole bills, solar panels, electrical generators, all designed to help all of us practice the hobby. Between 2009 and 2015, we were able to pass the first vertical and only vertical antenna bill in Texas. But we cheated. We called it a flagpole bill. And they didn't figure it out until the end of the session that metal flagpoles really could be antennas. But it's true. It lays the groundwork for a later bill that would give us towers. We also passed bills that permit solar panels and standby emergency generators. But because the legislature doesn't know that much about communications, we also had to defeat legislation. There's a proposal from a police organization that, had it passed, would have made every one of us a criminal if we used any frequency in an emergency. There were bills that were crazy enough to prohibit you from putting antennas or emergency lighting on a vehicle. Those were killed. There was a bill proposed by the crop dusters that, had it passed, would have required every amateur radio tower in the state of Texas to be marked and lighted. That was changed. In 2010, all of you, or those who want to admit it, were kind enough to elect me vice director and to elect David as director. In 2013, you re-elected both of us without opposition. In 2016, you did that again. From 2017, once we were there, I became, again, involved, not just on the local scene, but became involved with headquarters. The background of what I did while I was there and while I was vice director starts with, in 2017, there were a proposal made that, had it passed, would have eliminated your right to vote for vice directors, which is very important for you to maintain control of the organization. In 2018, a unique feature of the amateur radio organization came into effect. I think there are only 2 organizations in Connecticut that have this provision. When Hiram Percy Maxim formed this organization, he wanted to make certain that all of us determine the future of amateur radio. So in order to ensure that all of us elect the directors and the vice directors and maintain control, they created a dual seat position on the board of directors. A director and a vice director, they're identical except for one aspect: directors vote. But the unique aspect of it, which is designed to make certain that you maintain control, is that if the director becomes incapacitated, he dies, he doesn't show up, he retires. Your choice as vice director steps up and becomes director. In late 2017 and early 2018, David developed a health problem, which prevented him from showing up for the January 2018 board meeting. And the board meets in January and July. Since he could not attend, that provision meant that your choice for vice director became director for that meeting, and that was me. That meeting was significant because during that meeting, I and one other person authored the resolution that would have repealed the code of conduct that prevented us from telling you what we do as directors and vice directors. It ended up in the enforcement provisions being removed. And if you want to ask questions about that later, we can go through that. But there were other things that would go to the future of the league. There were proposals that, had they passed, would have eliminated your voting rights to elect directors. by creating super directors that would override your vote. There were provisions that would have permitted a board majority to have removed your membership without notice, without appeal, or Mike's without notice or appeal. It also would have permitted a board majority to have removed your choice as director or vice director. No notice, no appeal. It would have permitted them to censor any member of the board without notice or appeal. Again, all would have resulted in the diminishment of your rights and my rights. Since I was sitting as director, I was one of the leaders that was able to form the opposition and defeat every one of those. They went so far as to propose that a Silent Keys life membership could not be transferred to his wife. That's how far some of this went. But January 2018 wasn't the last of the issues that we had. In July 2018, David's health problems said he couldn't come back, and I again sat as director for the West Gulf. As we came up in January 2019, it was clear that the health problems weren't going to go away. And David made the decision to retire, which meant that when he actually retired and stepped down, I would become the full director, which is what happened in January, and that's the reason I now stand before you as the West Gulf director. In January, the board elected the executive committee, elected me to the executive committee. I was elected to the legal structure committee and the MCOM management committee. In that meeting, a major change occurred in the direction of the league. I and the others authored every motion that came, if you read the minutes, that passed. Those motions completely changed the direction of the league in favor of the members. We withdrew the Flawed Parity Act that you've heard much about. It repealed the Code of Conduct. It retained new FCC counsel after we terminated the previous FCC counsel. In July 2019, we cured one other problem. There was a great deal of controversy because the league had censored N6AA, Dick Norton. That was unfounded. And in July of 2019, this last few months ago, I and others put together the motion to repeal that. That has been taken as a stain away from the league. But let's talk about that change in direction. David Sumner, who was the CEO for, I think, 38 years, retired in 2016. From 2016 and now, there was a war for the soul of amateur radio and the league. The question was whether or not the attitude of headquarters, which was insular, it's our organization, not yours, not mine, whether or not that would continue, because that attitude considered all of us as barnacles on that ship. But what happened is the change was the members became the ship. Our members, all of us in this room, won that battle for the soul of the league. I and the other directors that became directors in that meeting have completely shifted direction. We've redirected the focus of the league to the clubs, to the members, and the programs that have not been enacted for at least a decade to support all of that. I've been a ham for 13 years. I've spent every working minute since I became a ham to do one thing. That's working for all of us in amateur radio. Until 2019, I and others were in the minority. We couldn't change the direction. But we have changed the direction, and we are refocusing the league on returning the organization that you support, that we all support with our dues, back to a membership-driven and membership-focused organization. The work that I and the others have started is not done, not even close. If that work is to continue, we need help. I think you could consider me the average ham.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm the average ham. I live in a deed-restricted community like many of you. My station, is a 1996 Chevy pickup. So I understand what the problems are that face most of us in this country with regard to HOAs. But my passion for amateur radio is what's driven me since I became a ham. That passion wants to continue to what we have started, the changes we started, and the improvements to the league. I've never stopped working for amateur radio in the league. But I can't complete the work that I've started. I can't complete the work we did in Texas, Oklahoma, or at headquarters without your help. It is your decision as to where the league goes in the future. And if you believe the path that I have followed, the actions I have taken, or the actions that we're proposing to take, are in the interest of amateur radio, then I need your support, and I need your vote for West Gulf Director. Thank you.
Okay, it's Madison's
Okay.
turn.
Thanks everyone for watching in the chat.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Madison Jones, W5MJ. How many times has the present director stood in front of you and asked, what's on your mind? What's important to you? What can I do for you? What do you want to know about the ARRL and how it works? I want to be interactive with you at your club on a regular basis. I too am an active ham in a deed-restricted area. I'm a retired Air Force fighter pilot. I'm also a retired lawyer. I'm an active ham. I've got over 70,000 Qs on my Logbook of the World account, which is quite a few. I'm a DXer. I'm a contester. I'm a de-expeditioner. That's what this is. This was from, I don't know, when was it, Dale? 2009, I think, when we went to Mozambique. But I've been on 17 de-expeditions all along. I'm the only extra class amateur radio operator in this race. I am a radio operator. That's what I do. I think the ARRL board should be open to visitors who want to be there. You want to go? You can't. I guess you can ask, but if you show up there, the door's closed to you. If they're, why can't they be live streamed? It's not that there's a stock price that's going to be affected, and people say, oh, well, when's the last time a board of directors had an open meeting? Well, the answer is, if you're a for-profit company, never. And the reason for that is because it affects the stock price. What if you know something that might happen next week? Well, there goes the stock price up or down. But this is your organization. There are 150 or so thousand people. Why isn't the meeting available to you? You don't have to sit in the back of the room and twiddle your thumbs. You could, but you could watch it on the television, as we're going to be able to do with this evening on Facebook. I think that it's time for a change in the West Gulf Division to have a competitive race. The Good Old Boy program, which John described, says, well, he was appointed by David Woolweaver, and David Woolweaver was appointed by Coy Day, and when Coy Day retired, well then David moved up from vice director to director. So do you get the picture here? Now John was David's vice director, and then he got moved up when John retired. One of the reasons that I'm running this race is because you need a choice. Do you want to have a director who was chosen for you without your input, without your vote 10 years ago, or somebody that you can choose now? One of the things that I'm going to push for when I'm on the board is that there be no more appointing of vice directors. There should be a competitive election for a full term. The members should have the choice. Members should make the decision, not the suits. What about WinLink? I think the concept is fine. After all, it's the amateur radio service, which really is emergency communications. But I also believe that they ought to be able to be translated in real time by regular folks using inexpensive stuff that's available to all of us. And they say, well, it's not encrypted, it's compressed. Oh, okay, well, it doesn't matter if it's compressed or encrypted or what. It should be happening, and the FCC rules forbid it. And you know, you ought to be able to know what's being said. I don't know how many of you remember auto patch that we used to have on repeaters. Well, the reason it worked is because you couldn't be doing all kinds of naughty stuff on the auto patch, otherwise it'd come home to roost for you. But the WinLink digital stuff, and believe me, I'm not opposed to it. I've done it. I know WinLink. I've been a WinLink member for I don't know how many years now, and I do that. Fact is, there's hardly anything in ham radio that I haven't done over the years. The only thing I can remember is I've never, even though I've tried, I was never able to make contact with the space station, but I did try. I just couldn't do it. And there shouldn't be any automatic transmitting stations without a control operator. And there's all this business that's done automatically. It just ought not to be. Now, if you're going to have all these things, that's fine, but let's have them in a special part of the band where you can deal with it. And people say, oh, well, it's a broadband and we only have a special spot on ACDS that we can work with. Well, golly, I can remember when there was propagation. Heck, I couldn't even get signals heard on sideband or CW because of all the action. And that's just the way it goes. You know, you can get in, you could spend a lifetime talking about WinLink and getting into the weeds with all that stuff, but you know, I just believe that we don't need that. Yeah, we need WinLink, but we don't need all this controversy. Last week, I believe it was, the ARRL, I think, I may be over simplifying this thing, but they filed something with the FCC that says it's okay to have broadband anywhere. And I don't even think you all voted for that, but somehow it appeared. So that's just the way it is. I won't take any more of your time right now, but that's the way I look at things. And I look for your vote, and thanks a lot.
Anybody want to break real quick or anything before we start questions? Going once, going twice?
Okay, we're going to take questions now. Some of these questions were submitted prior to the event today, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. And then if you're on the Facebook page, you'll be able to ask questions also.
Gail Lynn Bailey, KF5PWN. He says, do you think technician license should have more HF privileges than they do?
We go in order.
Yes, in order.
We can stand up and do it at the same time.
Yeah.
Gail's question refers to a rulemaking petition filed by the league, and the comment period occurred in February of this year. Starting in 2004, there was a discussion on the board as to how do we get technicians to upgrade. An effort was made to get the league, or get the FCC to grant a fourth class of license, to go back to a novice tech class license to encourage people to get in. FCC refused to do it. They do not want a fourth class of license. So the board at the time, because I was still a vice director, they passed a recommendation that the league apply to the FCC to enhance on 40, 20, and 15 the HF and digital privileges for technicians. The purpose was to try and entice technicians to upgrade. The question as to whether or not that's beneficial is a 50-50 coin. I don't think it's going to persuade technicians to upgrade. The majority of the people who have licenses are technicians. They have those licenses because they're happy with them. If you want them to upgrade, you have to give them an incentive. Giving them an incentive for more digital privileges will not necessarily cause them to upgrade. The real question is not, do you upgrade to general or extra? The real issue that wasn't addressed is, will they join the league? Will they become members and support amateur radio? Technicians that are members are one thing. Technicians that are not, offering them privileges won't do this. So the answer to the question is, there is no harm in giving technicians digital privileges, but the purpose of the original filing with the FCC, which is to encourage people to upgrade, doesn't solve the real problem, which is to get them to join the league and be part of amateur radio.
Thanks. Madison.
I don't believe that technicians should be granted these additional privileges. It isn't all that hard to become a general class licensee. And if you go into the trouble to be a technician and you want to do all that stuff, well then, hey, take the test. You know, it's a multiple choice and it isn't all that tough. I agree with John that the people who come in and are technicians are able to do the things that they want to do. If they want to have additional privileges on additional bands, then they should become a better class of licensee. And actually, you really learn things when you try to upgrade. You can't just walk in and take that test. You got to actually learn something. So if you're learning things, that might be good for you, might be good for radio. And if you don't want to learn them, there's plenty of stuff for you to do. So my answer is no thanks.
Antenna restrictions are a significant problem in developing operating stations. The ARRL has been promising action in this area, but no evidence of what is happening now or prospects of moving forward. What is your position on HOA antenna restrictions, and what would you propose as best path forward? This is from Dave, K5MWR.
Dave's question goes to one of the primary things I've been doing since I've been an amateur radio operator, which is trying to get rid of private land use restriction. Private land use restrictions are equivalent of crabgrass. They will choke out this hobby unless they are eliminated. The league filed a bill called the Amateur Radio Parity Act. It wasn't. Had that bill passed, amateur radio would have become subject to federal law. If you violated an HOA restriction, you had violated federal law. That's the reason we withdrew it in January. But that didn't end what the league is going to do. What we've done is now started a new project to obtain relief. The first thing we're doing, it's about a 4-part program. We're going to go state by state, attempting to pass tower and antenna bills. In February, we filed the first bill in New Hampshire. That bill was based upon the one we drafted for Texas. It is now in committee in New Hampshire. The one we will be filing one in Oklahoma based on that bill in January. We'll be filing one in Texas in 2021. We'll be starting in the fall looking for people in other states, amateurs who have the ability and who will help us file those bills and work state by state. We're also going back to Congress. We met with Congress first part of this week to determine whether the sponsors we had on the old bill would support us for a new bill. The new bill won't be a parity act. The new bill will be an absolute prohibition on any HOA interfering with amateur radio. What we received was a positive response. The bill is in draft stage right now based upon the bills we introduced in Texas and New Hampshire. The bill will probably, based on the advice we received, be introduced in the spring of next year because we need to pick up more sponsors. We're also looking to see if we can obtain private land use relief through executive orders. The President has immense powers over emergency communications, and we have entree into the executive branch. We're going to talk to the President's office to see if we can find a way to get a federal order that will apply to private land use restrictions. There are plans called continuity of government plans that require planning for the future when there is a major emergency. When we met with FEMA in June, that was another part of this program, we went back to the federal agencies and said, how do we get this relief? Will you help us? We abandoned working with the federal agencies over a decade ago. Tom Abernathy and Fred Hopengard and I started the program again, going back to the federal agencies and asking them to join up with us to obtain the relief. What those agencies told us in June was that whatever plans they have, they don't expect them to work perfectly. They see us as the only backup in the event of a major emergency. They want to help. So we're going back to Congress with a new bill, but we're not asking for parity with HOAs. It will be a prohibition bill. We're going to the states. Those are prohibition bills. And Texas and Oklahoma, well, the first two are going to be filing. We're looking, I think, in Maine next. Then we're going back to the executive branch. So the intent for the league is to remove private land use restriction by any means possible. We're not going to quit.
Thanks, Sean. Madison?
My approach is different. You know, Congress can't even agree on what day of the week it is, much less anything else. I can't see anything like that happening. But if y'all live in an HOA that restricts this sort of stuff, I've got a solution for you. Why don't you run for the board? Why don't you get your buddies to run for the board? And pretty soon you got a majority of the board, and then you say, well, we're going to change all those restrictions. Because that's the way you get it done. I mean, if you can get Congress to do something like that, I'm all for it, but I just don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon. But you know, your board has elections every year, and nobody cares. If you've ever been to one of those board meetings, and I have, you know, people want to talk about somebody's neighbor's dog who's running loose or something like that, and as a result, nobody goes to those things. Nobody cares. So if you want to get yourself and a couple of radio buddies on the board, or people that think like you, do it. You'll get your job done.
Thank you, Madison. There was another question here from Bill Stuman, W5RQR, but they've basically answered all this, because his question was, what is the most effective way for us hams and ARRL members to influence the FCC to prevent the overreach of homeowners associations so they cannot unreasonably restrict our ham radio antennas installed on our private property? I think they've already answered all that. Last question here is basically, how do we solve all of the world's problems?
Mike, if you want us to talk about the FCC, we can, because there's an issue with that.
There's actually 3 questions here, and it may come in on what you just mentioned. Question number 1, what do you see are the 3 most pressing issues facing amateur radio today in the USA, and how can the ARRL and you, if elected, help address these issues? Question number 3 out of that is, in your view, why does ARRL membership represent only approximately 20% of US licensed amateurs? He's not exactly sure of the 20%, so a percentage. 20.7. 20.7, excuse me. So, 3 most pressing issues, and how will the ARRL and you address those issues?
Can I address the FCC thing for a minute?
Let's go ahead and
Go those first and come back.
yeah, let's go ahead and do these first.
All right. The question asked what are the 3 most pressing problems? The problem is there aren't 3. The problems facing amateur radio and the league on your behalf are far more than 3. We can pick 3. But there are others that are just as important that will change the outcome of the hobby we all love. But one of the ones is one we always talked about, private land use restriction. It will choke this hobby out. No subdivision in the state of Texas since 1980 has been built within a municipal area without private land use restrictions that will prohibit and do prohibit amateur radio. No subdivision in most of the other states within the municipal area has also been built without prohibitions on amateur radio. How many of you have a satellite dish? Okay, they're legal. How many people know of someone who has wireless broadband for internet? It's legal. How many people have TV antennas? They're legal. That means if you want to put up a TV tower, you can put one up. We can't. If you want to put up a 1 meter dish, could be a gigahertz dish for us. We can't. They can't. To put up a TV antenna or a wireless broadband antenna, you can put up a mast or a tower of unlimited height. Height is determined by the need to get the signal. We can't. That is what we're going to fix. We're not going to remain the redheaded stepchild. The other problem is one that has been here since 1917, spectrum defense and spectrum loss. We have the largest block of free frequencies in the world. There's a Larry Gatlin song that says, all the gold is in California, in a bank in someone else's name. No, it's not. All the gold sits in the hands of amateur radio. It's free. That's the good news. The bad news is we're 157,000 members. We're the size of Midland, Texas on a good Tuesday. We pay no money to the FCC. The people who give you these little devices, cell phones, they will pay $1 billion per kilohertz. Anyone here got $1 billion? We don't, and if we raise the dues, they'll be out of cost. Does someone want to pay $1 billion? Can we work out? We can't fight with that kind of money at the present level. So, Hiram Percy Maxim got our frequencies back in 1917. It's been a fight ever since. It will not ever stop being a fight to keep the frequencies. But loss is on the horizon on a number of frequencies. How many of you do business with Amazon? Oh, come on, it's okay to admit it. Amazon just announced that they're going to open a service on the 902 to 927. It's a Part 15 band, they can do it legally. How long do you think it's going to be before they swamp 902 to 927? The European Union just announced that they really don't want us on 1296. They claim that we interfere with the Galileo satellites. Not decided. How many of you remember the French wanting 144 to 146? We stopped that with help. We didn't do it by ourselves. The point is, it's never going to stop. How do we prevent losing it? Look right and look left. I said 157,000 people. If we do not grow, if we not get to be a larger organization and become smarter about what we do at the FCC and Congress, we're going to lose. $49 doesn't match $1 billion. We've got a program on watching the FCC, opposing everything that gets into our frequencies. And we're pretty good at it, but it never stops. Any of you drive past Italy, Texas? There's a Tesla coil sitting to the west side of the road. It operates on the 160-meter band. Really, guys? How did that get through? The FCC overrode our objection. That is going to remain a problem for the rest of our lives, and this organization, only with the help of the members, can defeat that. It means that we will have to maintain dedicated presence at Congress and the FCC. One of the things that we may do in the future to fix that we've never done, is form a political action committee for amateur radio. We're a 501c3. 501c3s cannot lobby congressmen. If Mike is our senator, I can't give him money. You might have deserved it anyway. But if the ARRL does that, we lose our 501c3 status. So we're probably going to have to look at forming a separate organization, which is legal, to support our efforts. The other problem we've got is radio frequency interference. The noise level continues to increase. It increases because there is no enforcement against violators of Part 15 or any other part of the rules. The only way we're going to prevent that is, again, to be active at the FCC and Congress. We have to obtain the passage of more laws and regulations that require the enforcement of the existing laws to prevent radio frequency interference. If not, we're going to get rid of private land use restriction. We're going to get all the frequencies protected. And if we cannot, as an organization, eliminate or at least hold radio frequency interference, it won't matter, folks. You got a 200-foot tower in your backyard, and
1 minute.
and the noise level is so high that you can't turn on anything but a wall of noise. It won't matter. There are other problems, and we can talk about them, but and these may not be the exact three you thought I would bring up. But one has been with us and will be with us for the rest of our lives. The other one, we will eliminate private land use restriction. And radio frequency interference is the hidden dog that keeps biting all of us. Thank you.
On it. One was the three most pressing issues for amateur radio today in the USA. How can the ARRL, if elected, help address the issues? And why do you think the ARRL membership represents only 20% of the US licensed amateurs?
I missed that one. I forgot that question was there.
Bring it up later.
I will.
Okay. I think the biggest thing that amateur radio has to worry about is the lack of cohesion that we have amongst ourselves. And people are arguing about whether we should do this or do that or have this or have that. And the problem is the money. I don't know billions of dollars. I think you're way off on that, John. It's hundreds of billions of dollars that people are willing to pay for our radio frequencies. And, you know, if you think back in the day, Citizens Band was actually sort of civil, and people kind of paid attention. Yeah, there were some people out there that ran big power and so forth, but you know, mostly the people paid attention and they were chit-chatting about this or that. Well, it's degenerated now, and I haven't listened to it in some while, but I'm told that it's embarrassing. Well, if that happens on the radio and there's no, on amateur radio, and there's no enforcement, then I see that sort of thing is going to happen, and then the FCC will say, well, we're being offered X number of gazillion dollars by Amazon or somebody else for this particular part, and then you can't have it anymore because it's of no use. All you do is get up there and howl and complain and swear and carry on. Gosh, I can even remember back when 2 meters was pretty civil. I suppose it still is, but times change. But someone's going to take it away because it's not being used as it was intended. And of course, then you say, well, what about emergency situations? What about the hurricane or what was it, tropical storm, whatever, the one that hit here in town last week? You know, the people need emergency communications, and yet if we don't have it, then we can't use it. People say, well, you know, you don't need that tower. Well, maybe you don't, but maybe you do. What happens when you're the one that needs emergency communications? Or what if there's some of your family members who are somewhere out there and you don't know what's happening to them? Oh, well, you can always use a cell phone, right? No, not so much when the towers are down. What about the 9/11 situation where nobody could use any of those repeaters? What came to that rescue? Well, it was amateur radio. So we got to keep it, folks. And the way to do it is to not argue about all this stuff. you know, you wonder why only 20% or 20.7% of the members of the ham population are members of the league. Well, what's the league done for you lately? And when's the last time you were able to say something about all that? You know, I'm glad that the league board of directors is doing all this stuff to help us out, but golly, why weren't they doing it before? What's been happening all those years before when everybody was in there doing whatever they were doing and saying, gosh, we can't let you know what's going on because you might be interested in it. I'm all for transparency. What's wrong with having your meetings streamed, for gosh sakes? This is being streamed. I don't see anything wrong with it at all. Another thing that we have to worry about is getting young people in the hobby, and they do come in to do computer-driven things, and that's great. You know, I mean, gosh, if we're all using Spark like they did back when Hiram Percy Maximos was helping things along, where would we be now? There'd certainly be a lot of noise. And just as an aside, I guess I don't mind that noise because when I was at Mozambique or some of those other places, man, I'm hearing your voice. I like that.
Thank you, Madison. Okay, time for the audience. Questions from the audience. The one in black, I think, was the fastest. Of course, he may have even caught it out of my eye, so.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. I don't know if this mic's hot, but I probably don't need it anyways. I'm Steve, the North Texas Section Manager, and I would like to hear from each candidate. To your knowledge, is WinLink over Pactor 4 modem encrypted or just compressed? Which is it?
Steve is touching on an issue that is a very hot issue between two factions within amateur radio. One we call the Rappaport crowd, the other one's the WinLink group. About 4 years ago, the league filed a petition called 11708 to request the FCC to remove the symbol rate limit in HF and UHF from 300 up to unlimited and to oppose the 2.8 megahertz bandwidth limit. Simple request, simple petition, but what has happened is that parties have begun to argue about whether or not one of the users of Pactor modems, WinLink, is violating 97113 parenthetical A, parenthetical 4, which prohibits the transmission of messages that are encoded for the purpose of concealing the content. In February, when the new board took control, one of the things we were concerned about was what is the status of all the pending FCC proceedings, one of which was 239. What happened with 708 is the FCC changed it from removal of the symbol rate limit and imposing a 2.8 kilohertz limit on all digital signals to only removing the baud rate, which concerned the league back when it filed it, that would permit broadband signals anywhere in the band. The reality, one reason we asked for 2.8, and I'll get your encryption question just about explain this, there is no bandwidth limit for digital signals in any band except 60 meters. A 300 baud modem can go 20 kilohertz wide right now with modern technology. We intended, what we started was, we asked the FCC what the status of that proceeding was. They told us there was a final report on their desk. I do mean final report under review. We were concerned that unless we could get both sides together, we could not protect the CW and radio bands. We couldn't allow for digital signals where they needed to go. I asked the general counsel, can we get a delay? FCC agreed to give us 90 days to get both sides together. That started 4 months of intense research by the league. We talked to DOD, we talked to foreign governments, we talked to the FCC, we talked to experts in the industry. The question was, is WinLink an encrypted service, or is it encrypted if it uses Pactor modems? The answer is no. Those are if you're using Pactor modem, it's a proprietary compression algorithm. In order to use any digital mode in the ham bands, the FCC requires that the protocols for that mode be published. If they're published, it's legal. WinLink's been around for 20 years. There have been complaints for 20 years, and the FCC hasn't ruled illegal yet. What we determined is that the compression algorithms are not viewed by the FCC or any foreign government as encryption. The DoD says it's not encryption. None of this is encrypted. What has happened in the past 2 weeks is that SCS, who makes the Pactor modems, released a software program. It is free. You can download it. It has a manual how to use it. If you download the program, it translates every Pactor signal, real time. So the question of whether or not you can read WinLink signals is no longer an issue in the United States. You can download the program. There is, we think, under development, based on the people we've talked to, software modems that will transcribe any Pactor transmission, including WinLink, without a modem. But they're not going to be around for about 6 months. So the short answer is DoD and all the experts tell us WinLink and Pactors are not encrypted. They're just using compression algorithms that were proprietary. With the program that's been released, doesn't matter if they're proprietary, you can read them though.
Madison?
Well, I'm not sure if you got your question answered, but it's nice that Pactor 4 is now being, is now readable. However, it wasn't readable for a very long time. And it was readable, I guess, if you bought the Pactor 4 stuff, which is very expensive. But I'm not sure if you asked this question or not, but I'm not in favor of anything that can't be translated by the average person for the average bucks. Pactor 4 could be, I think, could always be translated, but it wasn't average bucks. It was lots of bucks to get the stuff for that. So basically, and you know, this stuff all moves on, and people come up with a new idea tomorrow that's going to make all this other stuff obsolete. Well, okay, I'm glad for that, but doggone it, the rules say it has to be translatable, I guess I'll call it, by the average ham, or at least not encrypted or compressed or anything else, so people can't understand what it is. So I'm in favor of things that are progressing on the hobby. I'm in favor of things that allow you to translate it. I'm not in favor of things that you cannot decrypt or decompress or whatever the terminology is. We got to know. That's what it's all about.
You were next.
Thank you.
And then there was somebody else over there.
Okay, I don't know. I'd like to ask this of both candidates.
You want to stand up at the same time?
Sure, I can stand up.
No, not you, us. We don't care if you stand up.
My name is Donald, K6RB, in case anyone cares. If you're elected, do you promise to fill out your full 3-year term as director, or will you, as has been rumored, attempt to move up to president of the ARRL, thereby moving the present vice director up to director? Very simple question. Will you serve out your 3-year term? You promise to do that. Thank you.
I would rather sweep streets than be president. It's the hardest job in the world. Besides, you have spent most of your time in Hartford. The direct answer to your question, Don, is yes. I'm not running to be a part-time director. I haven't spent the last 9 years being a part-time volunteer for the league. The only way we can accomplish the programs that we've talked about and fulfill a vision of this organization moving from 157,000 members to maybe 200,000 members with more diversity. Look around this room. We all look alike, except for the ladies who are kind enough to join us. We need to broaden the base of this organization so we look like America. We need more women, we need more ethnic diversity, and we need more age diversity. I see an organization that if we work at it, will become more known publicly and respected, more politically powerful, and we will have more rights as amateur radio operators. I can't do that as president. I can do it from the seat of a director's chair. And I still work for a living. I don't want to do that job. No. Clear answer. No, I'm not running for anything but director. And I will serve out all 3 years. Unless, of course, at CTDX you shoot me while I'm there.
The only thing I'm interested in being is a director for 3 years, so the answer is yes.
There's somebody over there.
I'm Don Masock, N5TCB. I think just started up with a question I had about field day. And the thing of field day is, up in Newington, Connecticut, it's nice and cool. This is not South Texas. And I think this brings up an issue down the road. It seems like Newington, Connecticut is a silo. It seems like everything revolves around that little headquarters. You know, what I would like to see, say for field day, is for some of the directors that live up north to come down here and sweat it out when the heat index is 110. You know, I think the thing is, everybody thinks that everything is, nice and cool. We have unique issues here in Texas, not just with the weather and everything else. We have different mannerisms. I think one of you just said, and I've seen it, the state is becoming more diverse in this sort of thing. What do y'all propose to break that silo in Newington, Connecticut?
That's two questions, I think. One, how do we break the silo, and what do we do about field day? There has been multiple suggestions from those of us who live south of the Mason-Dixon line that we ought to have rotating field days. One in January and one in June. Up until this January, there weren't enough votes to pull that one off because we were outvoted by the folks in the north. Whether or not we can switch field days, that is, no one up there understands the size of Texas or how hot it gets. And yes, we have invited people to come down. Whether or not it switches will be taken up in another year. Will it be changed? I'd give you odds, probably not. One of the reasons it may not be changed, although it ought to be because of the heat, is because we have to match up with all the other hamfests, and it's really difficult to make it work. But from my standpoint, because I visit all the field day sites, I would like for it to be cooler. As to the silo, that's a problem that is a reason that there is a new board and we're going in a new direction. You're right. 225 Main has been a silo for decades. A silo on information. None of us got the information, what's going on. I mean, read the minutes before. You couldn't figure them out if you had to. What was it doing with our money? We didn't know. They didn't tell us. Why did Logbook of the World break in November right after a contest? They didn't tell us. Simple answer. They had a maximum number of QSOs. No one knew it. The silo is gone. As long as the new directors are there, we have any say at all, and to the moment we do, the silo died. Information will be coming out to all of you. It will be coming out on a more frequent basis. At Dayton, the executive committee met. The board meets January and July. In between, how does it run? With an executive committee. That committee is only elected by the board, not appointed. And it's elected from both factions of the board. And I'm on that executive committee. One of the motions that we made at the executive committee meeting was to form a communication committee. A committee that has one purpose: to improve the communications with all of us, to improve communications with the public. It's going to happen. It won't happen overnight because we have to undo decades of work. But silo's gone. Field day, will you complain with me so we can get it switched? I'd love to change it.
You know, I don't know what everybody's complaining about. I don't think I had an air-conditioned car. I lived here in Houston until about 1993 or 4. And, you know, that's what you have a window for. And so I don't care. Heck, I've run field day out there more than once, more than 10 times when you just, well, heck, I was gonna say in a tent, but heck, you're not even in a tent. You're just out there and hoping for the best day and night and swatting bugs and making cues and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, the mere fact that it's hot out there is just kind of Texas, isn't it? As far as the other thing that you're all talking about, the silo, I don't know how you work with those people. I mean, golly, I don't know. They don't know stuff exists out here west of wherever it was. And I go way back. When I went to college the first time, I was in Massachusetts, and I used to take the New York Times because I wanted to find out what was going on in the world, and they were talking about the football games in the West, and they were talking about Ohio or something like that. I mean, yeah, it's changed a little bit, probably because we have better communications, but you know, I think that's moving with glacial speed. It's like kind of getting something out of Congress. You know, it'll take generations to change all that. Yes, it's getting better, and things improve, but you know, that's that point that I brought up about going to your meetings, your clubs, and listening to you, and then the directors all meet a couple times a year, and they talk about this sort of thing. You know, not all of them are from New England. Some of them are from Texas. How about that?
Okay, I got him, and was there somebody else? Yep, I see the two here. It's yours. You're next.
John Ledney, AL5J, I'm a life member. Would you summarize any specific changes, if any, to the current Title 47 CFR Part 97 that you would suggest concerning WinLink? Any changes?
John, I don't understand the question. Are you asking, is the statute changing?
Yeah, no, I'm asking, if you're elected, is there any changes that you would make to that? You are Madison. Is there anything that needs to be changed regarding the WinLink question right now?
97113 is about 2.5 pages long. It covers many things. It actually permits W1AW operate. There's nothing within it that needs to be changed. 97113A4 does not prohibit WinLink as it currently exists, if that's your question.
I'm saying right now, does the current statute, does it fit our situation? Are we good?
Yes.
Do we need to make any changes, or if there are any changes, what changes would you make?
No, there are no changes that need to be made to permit the current operations that we have.
Well, I'm not so sure I agree with that. If WinLink is being allowed anywhere in the HF bands, I don't think that that's going to be very good because that disrupts everything else. They should have their own portion of the band if that's what you're asking. I'm not sure. Is that what you're asking?
Would you codify that in the FC Part 97? Would you change that to where that's in Part 97?
Well, you got to keep one thing in mind. That's all done by the FCC. It's only.
As a director, would you support that change?
Yes, I would like to have a WinLink or any of the broadband signals in a specified portion of the band. And you may not know this, you know, people say, well, you go up to 070 or 074 and there's RIDI or FT8 or some of those other things. It's just because that's what we all agree on. But I think that I was distressed by seeing the FCC being petitioned by the ARRL, if that's the proper term, to allow the broadband signals anywhere on the HF bands. I don't think that's right.
Okay, John?
Hello, I'm John Chauvian, K5IZO. Mr. Jones, in your opening remarks, you mentioned a lot of things that you like that you would see to be done. I actually think that, you know, most of us totally agree with you, or at least wholeheartedly agree with you, including John. I've researched the QRZ bios for both you gentlemen, and on yours, Mr. Jones, on yours, you mentioned a bunch of things similar to the opening remarks. John embellishes a little bit more in that he tells a little bit about his experience. Can you talk about any track record that you personally have, one within ARRL, to better amateur radio for, you know, to a member level, and two, if you don't have that personal connection, what have you done in general with regards to your track record to better amateur radio for the rank and file of the membership?
Well, the short answer to your question is nothing. I've never been on anything other than a dues-paying member for all these years. But what I envision is the ability to get the board to not only do what it's recently done, as opposed to getting things all tied up in knots, but rather make it a member-driven organization. What can I've never done anything like that. I'm a brand new one. Politics is new to me, but I think that as a board member, I could hopefully encourage other people on the board to do the same sort of thing. I don't know if John mentioned it or not, but I'm aware that there's an 8-7 split between people who want it some other way and the ones who want transparency. Hey, I'm in favor of transparency. Why is it that we don't know all this stuff? Why? And you know, can I do that? No, all I can do is look at a problem, which I did as one of the 150 or 60,000 members of the league, and say, gee, that's not what I want. That's not what I like. That's not me. That's for somebody else. This business about the cone of silence, or I don't even remember what it was. What the heck was it called, John?
Talking about the gag order?
Yeah, whatever it was. You know, this reminded me of the old TV program Get Smart, where Smart and the director are sitting there and they bring that old plastic thing down over him so nobody can hear what's going on. I can remember one time when John showed up at a club meeting that I was at, and he says, I can't tell you what's going on. And, well, why is that? Well, that's because the board passed this code of conduct. That's it. And they say we can't talk about it except at meetings. That's ridiculous. I mean, come on. This is our organization, not a bunch of suits in Newington, Connecticut. Yeah, they come from all over the country. What's that all about? What can I do about that? Well, I guess I can make some noise and stink and hope for the best.
John, may I clarify something?
John, did you answer that one?
It's been resolved. In other words, he couldn't say anything. By mandate, he had a gag order.
That's true. I'm not finding fault with John at all, except that, I mean, if this is a member-driven organization, how in the heck can the members not direct things?
Everybody in here agrees, including John.
Yeah, the gag order, the code of conduct was removed on my motion at the January board meeting. Doesn't exist.
Question back here?
Good afternoon, gentlemen, and thank you for your interest in our organization. I'm Fred Cole, WA5BUC. I've been a life member. Well, actually, I'm a life member and have been a member of the ARRL since 1962. My question relates to how we can try to be cost effective in reaching out to these trade associations and special interest groups, basically the realtors and the homeowner association industry, to educate them on the need to have boots on the ground. So when bad things happen, we're there and ready to go. And I don't know if we've tried to outreach to these people or not. The other part is simply, besides our efforts to bring amateur radio to schools, science teachers, how else do you think we can get amateur radio in front of kids who are interested in Game Boys and, you know, things like that? So that's my question.
Let me address the HOAs first. Reaching out to them is like reaching out to a scorpion. They have one rule. I've been doing this for 9 years at the legislature. They have one rule. It is, we will not agree to change anything, period. If they agree with you, as they did with us on one bill, because we forced them into a box, we will support your bill. The moment it passed out of committee, they went to another committee and blocked the bill. By the way, we have the commitment in writing. There's a practical problem with regard to whether or not you like HOAs. They can't change. Mandatory HOAs have deed restrictions that are written as covenants that run with the land. If I buy your house, you and I can't negotiate it away. Each of those documents requires 65%, by state law now, 65% of homeowners to agree to change it. You can't get 65% of the homeowners to agree on ice cream in any of these subdivisions. If they want to change, they can't. There are two angles of attack on this. One is we prevent them. We had talked to the builders back at the Texas legislature. Builders and developers put these subdivisions out here and put the rules in. They put those rules in because they want you to buy their marketing brochure. Once they leave, they don't care. In fact, they put it in stronger language, but the relay is here. They don't care what happens. One of the solutions that is part of the legislative program we've got is we're going to start talking to the builders and developers to see if we can work out an agreement that if they put the restrictions in when they start, when they sell out the maximum number of lots, whatever it is, they go away. HOAs, the only way to affect the change is the way we're doing it legislatively. The state creates those rights, the state can and will take them away. Every time the Texas legislature or the Oklahoma legislature comes, they change the rules. You can have xeriscaping, you can have rain barrels, whatever, but the state changes it. Kids, that's one of the target audiences we need to reach to increase the membership. It's not the only one, but it's one. One of the things that we have right now is a teacher program. We bring in teachers and educate them on amateur radio. That program we're looking to expand. The more teachers we bring in, almost all of them get their license, the more of them will go back and tell the kids, this is interesting. The other issue that we have to work out is with the schools. We have schools that had amateur radio stations and they took them down because they didn't like the aluminum on the roofs. That's the education issue. The education is educating the administrators that that is an avenue, a pathway into STEM programs. And that may require that the league start funding some of this. It's something we're looking at. So we got at least two aspects. One, we increase the teacher program so we can reach into the schools. The other is go back to the educational systems and explain why we're a benefit. That's part of the educational program we're looking at, educating the public why we're valuable. And that is a project we'll start on. It's a long-term project. There's no magic solution to it because each school district is different. But that's one of our key targets because if we get those kids, we may lose half of them. Again, they find girls too. Our boys, whatever. But they will come back. The key is to reach them when they're at an age where they have an interest. Did I answer that well enough for you, sir?
You did, and by the way, I'm also an attorney and I fight these guys every day, so
Well,
that's the reason for my question the way I asked it.
okay. Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna let you all in on a little secret, and that is that I don't know who did the very first HOA CC&Rs, the restrictions on there, but whoever it was has been copied ever since. I don't think there's an original thought on one of those things ever since the first one hit the pavement. So I really do think that getting on the board is going to help. You say, well, 65% of the folks got to vote on a change, but you know, you can dovetail that in there and you get those people to vote on there. it's done. It would be good to go to the developers and say, how about that? Because, I mean, probably the developers don't have much of a clue about this stuff either. I gotta tell you that one day when I was here and living here in the Houston area, I was talking to the neighbor lady that lived 2 doors away in my driveway. I was facing the street and she was facing the back part of my lot. And all of a sudden she says, "What's that?" And I said, "That's my amateur radio tower and antenna." And she says, "Well, how long has that been there?" And I said, 10 years or so. And she said, "I never saw it before." So these people that always tell you that the reason you can't have your towers and antennas and all that other stuff is because that's what somebody told them. It's going to interfere with this or that. You know, the reason that you run into the kitchen cabinets is because you're looking straight ahead or down, not up. You know, here this tower and antenna had been up there for 10 years and she had never noticed it, although she only lived 2 doors away. It's a public education thing. So if you can work with the developers and get them to see that all those CC&Rs that say no antennas or something because they ruin property values, which they don't, or they're ugly, which they certainly are not, you know, that's a good place to start. As far as the school thing is concerned, the reason the schools, and I agree with John on this, the schools used to have more of them than they do now. The reason that they don't have them now is because some principal or vice principal thought it was a bad idea or a waste of resources, or we need to have more football or something or other. But golly, why can't they learn about the importance of emergency communications too? Why not that little handheld radio that's going to save somebody's bacon the next time there's some sort of problem that you can't fix with your telephone or your computer? I mean, that's a good place to start. So this is all homegrown stuff. You asked about the working with the other people, the developers. The manufacturers and so on. That's one way of doing it, but that's kind of like getting Congress to do something. It may take a while.
Paul?
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Gilbert, KFuzzyW. I'm also the South Texas Section Manager. And I just retired from 35 years in the public safety communications community. And I'm going to address this to Madison and John. The amateur radio community in the United States is struggling with continuing to be engaged with the public safety community, communications community. Now, I'm saying this as a general overall wide brush, okay?
We need to ask them a question.
Okay, I will. I'll get there.
No, we need to ask them a question. We don't need a speech.
Okay.
Sorry.
But anyway, the question is that how are you going to get them engaged? How are you going to get amateur radio engaged with the public safety communications community in light of the issues that they have with that community?
That was one of the first steps that we took when the new directors came up on the board. The league has done nothing with regard to emergency communications of any form or fashion other than go to Hamfest for 8-10 years. The board directed that there would be a new director of emergency management, not someone who works at the building and moves go kids. There is a job application up on the web right now if anyone's interested. We are proposing to hire someone with the job qualifications equal to that of a federal emergency manager. That person's responsibility is to develop the programs necessary to keep ARRLs and NTS, to the extent it works with emergency communications, integrated back into the systems. In June 12th, we met with the major federal agencies, and we've started working, in fact, Lee, who was the section manager in South Texas before, is meeting with Ross Merlin of the Sheriff's Unit to develop joint programs for ARRLs and sheriffs to work together during emergencies. So the league is starting to not redevelop, it's going to recreate a emergency management department that is going to address the problem you've got, which includes training for the members that will match federal standards and will persuade the federal agencies to continue to work with us. That answer your question? Okay.
I don't think I have a better solution than what John offered here. The league needs to get busy on this. And I don't know that I don't have a specific idea as to what we might do as far as getting emergency communications, but gosh, look at this building. This whole building here is dedicated to that sort of thing. And I know that every day that goes by here, every work day, there's all kinds of stuff going here. Yet there are other smaller communities that don't have anything. They have a police department or something, a fire department, or volunteer fire department, where they get that stuff going. It's just a matter of of continuing to educate these people. They understand that when Rita and Katrina were around here, how tough it was, and they didn't get anything done. But I don't know that we can do anything other than what the league has already, or the board has already set up with an emergency communications, other than getting the young people or the new people in the hobby to actually press that PTT and make some noise on their handhelds so people can understand that it actually works. It's not a radio, it's not a computer, it's a handy-talkie, and it's got pretty good range on most places. That's what you need to do.
Any other questions? Again?
Thank you. This is Steve again, KG5VK, North Texas Section Manager. Can each of you explain the volunteer monitoring program, when it will stand up, and who the volunteers will report to?
The volunteer monitoring program replaces the OO program. It replaces it because the FCC killed it. They created it, they deemed it would cease to exist. The volunteer monitoring program sent out applications for volunteers. The period for receiving those applications ended about the middle of July. The training courses for the volunteer monitors are starting, this is September, starting next month. The FCC closed most of its field offices, and our volunteer monitors are going to be replacing their field officers effectively. They want people who are trained to capture the information necessary so they can prosecute or censor people. The training courses will go through the fall. There are 250, maybe 260 volunteer monitors. It was originally 250. We expanded it because we had gaps in areas that we needed. So the training is started, or will start it next month. Once it is finished and is accepted by the FCC, then the volunteer monitoring program will go live. Did you want details regarding it, or just, okay, okay.
I'm also aware of the volunteer monitoring, as I was of the official observing thing, the OO report. I never got one, but I knew a couple people that did. And I'm glad it's there. As John told you, the situation was mandated by the FCC. It's not something that the league decided wasn't working very well, because I thought it was. But it's moving apace, and like anything, any government program, it'll get there one of these days, but it's in its infancy right now. I'm not sure why the official observer program stopped, but whatever it did. So it's alive and well. Yes, I understand that there's a monetary aspect to it, because somebody's got to look after those reports. Whether or not anybody's actually going to get fined any more often than they do, it's about, from what I read in the QST, it happens about twice a year, somebody who's interfering with things. But maybe if it's better known, why we might stop hearing music on 2 meters. I guess that's what I'll say.
We got an online question that came in to,
Yeah,
Right here.
Jason, your feed is getting out. A friend of mine in the Austin area just, you go for it. A friend, because I gotta read this.
Okay.
He sent me these emails and he asked me to ask these questions. He says, John speaks, and this is from, Tom, W2MN, W2 Mary Nancy, who lives in the Austin area. He said, John speaks of the league and uses we. We need to ask a question requiring his personal position. MJ stated, Madison Jones stated, his position on WinLink encryption and compression. John Stratton just said what the ARRL is doing. What is his personal position? That's question one. Question two, Madison Jones took the position on band location assignment for the WinLink kinds of stations. What is John Stratton's position, personal position? Finally, MJ position stream says they should stream the ARRL meetings. What is John Stratton's position? Thank you.
And I'm going to ask you probably to repeat those so I get them right.
so
And-
are you saying all that's to John only?
Sir?
Is all that to John only, basically?
Yeah, because he just said,
Okay.
he's watching and he saw what Madison said.
Okay.
He wants to know what John's personal
Okay.
positions are. And John, I'll give you the questions again.
Let's do the last one first, and then we'll go through the other two.
The last one first is streaming ARRL meetings. What is your personal position?
It's represented by a motion that will be filed in December that will go before the board, and that is the open up the board meetings. The tradition of the board is that it's never been open. Officially, there's no rule, but the tradition has been it's been closed. So the motion that we will be filing in December, the reason we file in December is we have to file it a certain number of days before the meeting. That will be a motion to open the meetings. Live streaming is not opposed. We may get approval. The problem is whether we can live stream from the Marriott. If we live stream from the Marriott, it will cost us a fortune because we have to use their equipment. The opposition is not to live streaming it. I have no opposition to it. We proposed this one time before, I think a year ago, and it failed by a vote of, I want to,
Practical, your personal.
my personal position,
You would live stream, is that
no,
correct?
my position is everything we do, whether it's in meetings of the board or anything else, should be open to the members. If we have a meeting, there's no reason that the members should not be able to sit in the meeting, and if we can Shanghai Jason, there's no reason that those meetings shouldn't be on the air. There's nothing that's secret.
Okay.
What was your other question, Don?
WinLink, compression and, yeah, you said what the ARRL position is. What is your position on WinLink and the encryption and the compression? Do you think that should be allowed? Personally.
I don't understand the question. Are you asking is WinLink encrypted? Or are you asking should it be encrypted?
No, well, his question is, Madison said that he thinks there should be, what did you say, Madison?
This is a test.
He thinks that you should be open. Yes. It should be open and available to everybody. What is your personal position on that?
The best description to that answer, Don, and that is a position that we took by 14-1 in the board meeting to ask the FCC to enact rules that would limit the bandwidth of all signals within the CW and radio bands, that move ACDS stations up to an allocated frequency, and that would limit broadband signals to over 500 hertz to 2.8 and move those signals into the ACDS bands. If you're asking is WinLink, do I believe WinLink's encrypted? No, because we researched that with the FCC and DoD, it's not encrypted. If the question is, what should PACTOR do with regard to permitting other people to translate what it transmits? That's been solved because they released a free software program that permits you to monitor any PACTOR transmission. And if the question is, should they be able to do it? Should they do it? Yes.
Okay.
That's what we pushed for.
All right, final question that he asked was, the
Those are two separate.
Madison said they should be up in the upper part of the band and out of the CW portion of the band. What is your personal position on that?
You've conflated two issues. The answer is yes to both.
Okay.
But again, it's a 14-1 board motion, and I was one of the signatories to the motion and helped draft it. It says there should be no broadband there should be no data signal within CW radio bands greater than 500 hertz. ACDS stations should be within an ACDS band that's assigned to those stations. Any broadband signal over 500 hertz can't be greater than 2.8. It has to move up into those bands. So any WinLink signal, regardless of the width, and they're usually 2.4, 2.7, would, under the request made at the FCC, move into the ACDS bands. That will be an assigned band for all digital signals over 500 hertz.
Okay, Tom, thank you for your answers. You wanted your personal position?
That's my position, and that's the position I recommended we take at the board and it was adopted.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
So, KP5, KP, this is directed toward Madison specifically. In your statement, your opening statement, you referenced good old boy into the vice director, the director, etc. What do the bylaws specifically say about that? Because I interpret them different. How are you seeing good old boys in them?
Well, let me give you the latest thing that happened, and that is that David Woolweaver resigned, and then John became the director. That's the bylaw says that's what happens. And then, I'm not sure exactly how the bylaws put it, but at that point, now there's a vacancy in the vice director situation because John was there and now he's not there. And so what happened was, I think it's in accordance with the bylaws, the president then, I believe it's the president, or maybe it's the CEO of the organization, somebody other than John appoints the vice director. However, how does that person know who's available or who would like to do that or what? And the answer probably is, John probably said, oh, I like Lee. And Lee's a good guy. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him. But my complaint was, John didn't ask me whether I was interested, didn't put out any word to anybody that this was going to happen, or if he did, I didn't hear about it. So I think that's kind of a closed system. I don't like that. I think that there should be an election. So the vice director doesn't show up, so the director doesn't show up at any particular meeting. Hey, that's the way it goes. You know, perfection is desirable, but hardly ever achieved. So why not leave that situation open until there can be an election? Does that answer your question?
Not completely, because I'm trying to understand why you're saying it's the good old boy when you're saying the vice director moves into the director. It's a good old boy when the vice director had to have been elected at one time to get there. And you have to put somebody temporarily to do business.
Oh, no. No, the vice director is appointed by the president or the CEO. He doesn't elected. I mean, if there's a vacancy, the CEO or the president or whoever does that says, yeah, but how do they know unless they ask the director, the person who was just there?
Is what I'm saying.
I'm sorry?
Once he is in spot, once he is in position, you cannot leave something vacant. An organization, you can't leave it vacant forever. Once he's in position, that vice director, from the things I've seen come out on your campaign stuff, are saying he's in a good old boy position. But has he not been elected 2 or 3 terms since he was vice director by the ARRL members to stay in office?
No. Well, if I understand your question correctly, what I look at the good old boy system is that, let's just take for instances here. Koide was the director. He somehow, I think David was elected in 2004 or something like that, quite a while ago. I know he was elected at some point. So when Coy resigned, then David, because of the bylaws, became the director. Well, and then, of course, David became the director. John, I don't know how John became the vice director, except that I suppose that, that once David became the director, now there's an open seat, and he probably said, okay, John, you're it. Or told the president or the CEO that John's it. And I mean, you don't recommend somebody that you don't know and like. You don't just pick a name out of a hat. So that's the good old boy thing that I'm talking about. Did David ran for election? He ran against another fellow. I don't remember who it is, but I do remember seeing the campaign statement of the two people that were doing, and obviously the members at that point elected David. Well, that's okay. Why don't they elect everybody? Why didn't they elect John when that opportunity came up? Why did David appoint him? I don't know, but it seems to me that you don't just say, oh, I like the cut of your jib, I'm going to make you the vice director. That's what I'm complaining about. It should be something, this is a member-driven organization. I don't think I can stress that enough. It's you all that are doing this. It's not just somebody saying, oh, that's my good buddy, or that's the person that I like, or that's the person that thinks like me, or I don't know what. So I can't answer the question other than that I don't approve of it.
Did you want John to mention anything on that?
Let me clarify that.
It's up to him if he wants.
Okay.
With respect to Madison's statement, it's incorrect. I wasn't appointed vice director. David did run for election in 2010. So did I. We both ran at the same time. We both had opponents. I wasn't appointed. You and the rest of the West Gulf, including Oklahoma, elected David and me. David as director and elected me as vice director. In 2013, you had a choice. Did you want to return either of us to office? You did. In 2016, you had the same choice. You did. Your decision this year, again, is going to have an impact on the direction of the league. But there was no good old boys network in 2010. David ran a hard race against a gentleman out in North Texas. His name was Esri, by the way. And I had an opponent out of Oklahoma who ran a good gentleman's race and a hard race. The decision was made by West Gulf that David would be director, and I was vice director, but I was not appointed.
Hang on just a minute. I've got some questions here from the web. They're both for Madison. Madison, how will you plan to interface with section managers and staff? That's from Dale Durham. And then Bruce Love, WB5NOQ, wants to ask, what more can you bring to the office of director than Mr. Stratton does not offer? I guess I said that right. So, first one, how do you plan to interface with section managers and staff?
Well, I guess for the ones that I haven't met, I'll introduce myself, and we'll go from there. What was the second question? Mike? Second
Next
question?
one is, what more do you plan to bring to the office of director?
I'm sorry?
What more do you plan to bring to the office of director than John?
Oh, well, that's an easy one too. You know, everybody says the Congress is a bunch of rascals, right? Except my congressman or my congresswoman. They're terrific. Well, okay, maybe that's right, but as far as the other 417 congressmen are considered, nobody likes yours either. They like theirs, and as a result, it's a whole different, it's all the same thing, same song. Next verse is the same as the last verse. What I can do is, does John have all the great ideas? No. Do I have all the great ideas? No. But I certainly have a difference of opinion on some things, and I may be able to have some ideas, some fresh ideas that John hasn't thought of yet. I mean, I have nothing to offer except a different point of view. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Next one from Marty Fitzgerald. As director, what do you plan to bring more people under 21-year-olds into amateur radio and the ARRL and into ham clubs? I think we've already answered that, but do you have any more comments about that?
Is that directed?
Either one.
No.
I think you already covered that pretty well. Any more? You have,
Yeah, thank you for coming today, gentlemen.
hold on.
Okay. I'm curious to get your your ideas as to how the league can increase the percentage of members among the existing licensees.
Which licensees?
Existing licensees. You've addressed what we can do in the future as far as
Okay.
kids in school.
How do we get existing licensees to stay? To join the league. That is one of the biggest issues we've got, 157,000 members. What we have we'll start doing January, we've got a new magazine coming out that is just for people who are not members. We also have a program that is going to reach out to groups where we know we have amateur radio operators, but they're not members. You've got prepper organizations, you've got churches, we're going out to all of them. We opened at Oshkosh for the past 2 years a booth to talk to pilots, because we have a lot of pilots who have technician licenses, but they haven't joined. The biggest missing group we've got aren't generals and aren't extras. It's the technicians. Those are the people we need to get in. And that is part of the what we call the lifelong learning program that we're putting together. It's about a $500,000 program we're developing, trying to reach out to those folks to keep them in amateur radio. Because one of the problems we have with people who get their license, they don't know what we know. They don't know what radio to buy. They don't know how to connect it to an antenna. If you have a club, like some of the good clubs here in Houston and Dallas and Oklahoma, you have a mentoring program. They'll teach them. But not all clubs have a mentoring program. We're trying to supplement the clubs, the lack of mentoring programs, with programs that we can reach out to these folks to entice them into the league. It's also part of a program we set up with the clubs. When I started meeting with the clubs this summer, and the first one of July, what I found out when I became director was that the league has not been talking to the clubs. The backbone of amateur radio are the clubs in the United States. The league has stopped providing them with any help. The primary recruitment source for new members are the clubs. The league stopped helping them. As a result of that, when we went to the July board meeting, I've got the commitment of the CEO that we're going to hire a club coordinator, whose one of the jobs is to help develop the programs for the clubs, to develop recruitment programs for the people who are hams but haven't joined. That's what we're doing.
Well, I think I addressed this in about the first 30 seconds of what I was talking about. I said the directors and the vice directors need to go to the clubs and say, what is on your mind? What I've observed in the past is they come up and say, well, this is what the league is doing or not doing, or we have this or that or the other problem. Well, that isn't important to them. Maybe it is, but most people don't. They want to know, what am I getting besides a magazine for my 49 bucks? And the answer is, at this point, not much. You need to find, the director needs to go to the clubs and say, golly, what's on your mind? What do you want? What can I do for you? It's not the other way around, but that's what's been up to now. You know, they tell us what's going on, but that doesn't cut the mustard.
And one more, that's it? Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? We're coming up to 4 o'clock. I guess everybody's tired. Question?
I don't need a mic, just a simple question. What percentage of the licensed amateurs belong to clubs? Either one of you, whoever can answer it. You're emphasizing interfacing with clubs. What percentage of those amateurs that are licensed belong to clubs?
The percentage of amateurs, you're asking the percentage of those of licensed or percentage of those who are members?
No, those that are licensed. I want to know what your potential recruitment pool is.
The percentage of amateurs who belong to the clubs is pretty close to the percentage of amateurs who belong to the league. It's about 22%. The membership of the clubs mirror the general membership in the league. If from the clubs,
Tremendous potential there.
that is where the potential is, and that's the reason we're developing the programs to go help the clubs bring those people in. Because if I go to a club meeting, and a new program with the West Gulf is that we're holding rolling meetings with the clubs in every city. The first one was in Dallas. I think we have another one, Paul, South Texas, in October.
Sometime late October, probably starting in September.
The purpose of that is to go find out what the league has not been doing and what they need. That's the reason we've now got a club coordinator hired. But one of those programs is how to get those clubs, teach them how to get Mike, who's a member of the club but not a member of the league, to join.
What you're saying is that there's a 20% potential growth there for the clubs.
80%. There are 80% of amateurs licensed, assuming they're all active, that are not.
On the clubs, that's what I'm trying to get at. How many amateurs in the clubs are not ARRL members?
About 20%.
So
That's, so you've got an upside within the clubs.
I think really, on his question, take ARRL out of the equation. Forget ARRL for a minute. I know you can't do that. But how many hams are in clubs? And how many hams are not in clubs, right?
Your question, how many are not in clubs?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is what is the potential pool of recruitees? How many in the clubs can be recruited that are not ARRL members? That's what I'm trying to find out. Because it seems to me that you probably, it's not that big. Say 50% the clubs, 50% of 20% is what? Another 10% that you can recruit.
Every member we get is a member that helps keep this organization alive.
I disagree.
If you look at the clubs, any clubs I go to and I ask, raise your hands, how many of you members of ARRL? It varies from club to club. If you want a number, pick a number of about 20% of any large club that may not be members.
Okay, now what do we do about the other 70%? Either one of you.
The other
If they're
70%.
not in the clubs, they're not members, how do you recruit them?
Okay, that's a clear question. That is part of the programs we're putting together that we're trying to, that are part of this entire development program we've got. How do we go back to the clubs? Because I, Mike, you, we cannot walk out on the street and pick up people who are going to be members. There has to be a reason for you to join. People come into amateur radio and to ARRL and the clubs through the clubs. That's the primary source of contact. That's the reason we're developing the programs for the clubs, so they can reach out to the people who are not a member of the club and bring them into the club. If they can bring them into the club, they can bring them in to the league itself. There's no very good way to get to the folks except by personal contact. The primary recruiters are sitting in this room. If we want people who are not in clubs, or not in the league, they're going to come in to a large degree because of the contact you have. In order to help the clubs do that, that's the reason we're developing recruitment programs that will go through the club to the people they know. Okay, Madison?
Gosh, my experience is a lot different. I belong to 4 different clubs, and I don't think anybody at any of those clubs is not a member of the ARRL. When you look at the sign-in sheet, one of the columns is over there, ARRL member, and the answer is always yes. I don't know about these other ones, so I can't address your question because I guess as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't exist. Now, there are a lot of people out there who are not members of clubs but whether they're ARRL members or not, I don't know. So I don't know how you find that out except that you talk to them. Do you know members that are not, I'm sorry, do you know people who are not associated with any club at all? I mean, I'm a member of 4 of them. And so that's all I can say. Everybody is of all those things, but I don't know who is not a member. Okay, well, there you go.
Okay. Got one more over there.
You briefly just spoke to what I was going to ask. I'm a member of 3 clubs as well. This is probably something for John more than you, Madison. Does the ARRL look at any metrics of multiple club memberships? Now, unlike Madison's experience, a couple of clubs, I mean, probably ARRL memberships, maybe 50–60% of the club membership. But that's probably something the league doesn't, a metric that they don't try to track is, like Madison and I, who are members of
That metric doesn't exist. That's one of the problems we have. We're trying to redevelop the recruiting programs. I mean, right now, we're trying to rebuild a club list for the West Gulf. Zogel and Mary are working on that for North Texas and South Texas. The league doesn't have current information. Is that trying to hum? Thank you. That's one of the things that we have to rebuild at the league. We don't know even where all the clubs are if they're current. Once we can determine where the clubs are and they're current, then we can go back to the clubs and ask. That's the reason I said, the league has not been asking the questions it should have asked that it needed in order to develop the programs for decades. That's part of what we're changing.
You got a question over here?
Yes, I do. Okay. Clubs aside, if you want to get young people into the system, young people in general don't want to join clubs. They are living in a virtual universe tied to the internet. So what programs do you envision ARRL might put together that would actually reach out to these people? And I go to a question you saw me ask in Austin. If you have a problem, where's the first place you go? And everybody in the room went to YouTube. I mean, are we going to actively work to use that forum as a way of recruiting membership and improving ARRL?
We have a YouTube channel. There are programs being developed as part of this learning program that will use YouTube to reach out to that group. There are 2 youth groups that we need to target. Everyone thinks of youth as 18 and below. There's another group that's younger than most of us. They're the ones from 25 to 40. They're the ones who are what I call the computer generation. When people interested in computers learn they can interface computers with radio, they're interested in joining amateur radio. That's driving a lot of the development in amateur radio digital development right now. So there are 2 youth groups that we're targeting. One is to get into the professional community that are in that 25 to 40 range. The YouTube range you're talking about appeals to the 18 and below. That is part of the development program. Yes, we are going to use it because they like the cell phones. They like watching stuff on the computers. But there is a program that's being developed as part of all these new development programs that we've got, but it will be targeted.
Any details on how that program is going to work?
If I can get the people that we paid a lot of money to come down and talk to us, I could tell you. It's been under development for about 18 months. We're going to get the first real detailed report on it at the executive committee meeting in October 12th. It's a full program, not just at youth, it's at the other groups. It's also dealing with the web and how do we reach out to our current members. So do we.
Any more questions? I know everybody's getting tired. And if not, parts of their body are definitely tired. Anyhow, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank John and Madison both for coming out and doing all this. When I got into amateur radio in 1991, I made a little speech at the Brazos Valley Amateur Radio Club because I got involved in public service events. And I was thinking, when I got in, oh boy, I just couldn't wait. I know everybody was willing to go out and work bike rides and all this, and you were just crazy not to. I found out after about 30 seconds I was wrong. The one thing that hadn't changed, actually it's gotten worse. In 1991, roughly the amateur radio frequencies were worth $50 billion in auction. You can put a 0 on that today. $500 billion for our frequencies, that's what could go on auction tomorrow. So vote, do something, go out, jump up and down, but make sure you support whoever you can for the event for amateur radio. Otherwise, just pack your radio up and send it home or send it somewhere. Hold on, I need to finish this up here. We're running out of time. So, what did you have?
I was going to say,
Okay. That sounds like somebody's running for office. Go ahead, question real quick.
I want to thank you for all your participation throughout the community for all these years.
Who? I haven't done anything. It's everybody else that's done everything. You're applauding yourselves, not me.
John, I personally don't know you, but I've listened to you speak in a lot of different places. Madison, we have some history behind us. I think everybody's a great person. But what I would like to happen, because I'm seeing out here in the audience, there's a lot of ARRL people apparently here that are not just members. So if they could stand up and introduce, or stand up and we could give them a call to come in.
ARRL members, stand up.
No, people above leadership. Leadership, the leadership.
Oh, the leadership.
There's a lot of people out here in the
Oh,
audience.
leadership of ARRL, stand up.
The leadership and their thousands of a lot of them here.
Let's give them the clap.
Yeah. One thing that's been mentioned several times tonight is about how do we get more hams in there in the younger crowd. One thing that's happening is the Greater Houston Ham Fest, and this is kind of an announcement, is partnering with a group, you've probably heard it before, the name called Makers Fair. Makers Fair is normally Makers Fair Inc. Unfortunately, Makers Fair Inc. has closed its doors, but not the organization here in Houston. It is now called iSpark or iSpark Innovation. The Greater Houston Ham Fest will partner with them for the Ham Fest, which will be March 6th and 7th. Of course, 7th will be the main day, 6th will be set up. But they'll be partnering there. We'll have the great Fort Bend County Fairgrounds almost totally booked. They'll have stuff out there that the normal Makers Fair guys do. They're gonna do rocket launches. Who knows what they'll have out there. It's gonna be a really big event. So we're growing and there's gonna be a lot of things going on. And that'll be bringing the whole new realm of people out there, whole new demographics. Amateur radio's in there. The thing about it is, what a lot of people don't realize, amateur radio was really the first Makers Fair type organization back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, because we had to simply build everything. Everything from the knobs to the tubes to the cabinets to the coils. So it's a perfect marriage for our hobby, and hopefully it'll help us continue. Again, I want to thank everybody. I definitely want to thank Jason Johnston, KC5 HWB, Ham Radio 2.0, Frank, and I don't have his last name, but just wave hi, Frank. I want to thank everybody for everything. Anything else? Remember, your ballots will come out. Yeah, TranStar volunteers. Yes, we have lots of them. Any other comments by anybody?
Put your chairs under your table, please.
Tray tables up in the locked position.
Something like that.
Thank you again for coming.
Okay, hey, that was pretty cool. Frank, they don't have your last name, so you're still incognito with them.
I like it.
You like it? Yeah. He came over here a minute ago. He goes, "Is Frank a ham?" I said, "Of course he is." Wouldn't ask him to be on the show if he wasn't a ham. Of course he's a ham. So yeah, there you go. So go join the ARRL. Stop not being a member. So whatever. What is that? That's my phone. Okay. My phone's vibrating on the desk. So go and join the ARRL so that you can vote. And if you don't like what's going on in the league, then go do something about it. And stop being one of these people that complain about the president but never vote in the election. So this will be up on YouTube tonight. I'm probably just going to put the raw footage up there. So go to YouTube.com, search for Ham Radio 2.0. It will be up there then. I'm going to put a bunch of links underneath it about, somebody asked in the comments towards the end here about John and Madison's website, if they have a website. I don't know if they do or not, but I will post that. I will get that information and post it. And the elections are going to be from like October, I think he told me October 10th to November 15th or something like that. So, again, you should get a ballot in the mail, but you can always go to the ARRL.org.net, whichever, they own all of those. The ARRL website, once the elections start, you can probably cast a ballot online too. So, guys, thank you very much. Sorry about the switch over from YouTube to Facebook, but you can blame the EOC for that. And but thanks for watching. We had really good participation online and here today. So 73, and we will catch you guys later. If you're in the Houston area, get on DMR today.